Who's next?
There's a bit more to the animation, but first let me show you the process of how I made Wolverine in Unreal Engine. First, I started grabbing some references. My go-to source is always Pinterest, where I save images to a board and import them into PureRef, a fantastic free application for organizing references from all over the internet. With PureRef, I can view all of my references simultaneously and mark specific elements I like in each image. Then I launched Metahuman Creator, a browser-based application for making realistic characters by blending between pre-made characters or simply tweaking the points to get exactly what I want. I aimed for a face close to my vision for Wolverine. Unfortunately, Metahuman does not give us a lot of control over the body, but since I'm going to fully customize them later, it is not an issue. Then through 𝒕𝒉𝒐𝒏𝒔, I can import the Metahuman into Unreal Engine, and it takes time. Once that's done, I had to enable some missing plugins, give Unreal a restart, and here I have the Metahuman I created inside an Unreal level. However, Unreal alone isn't sufficient for all the necessary customizations. So I'll bring this into another free application called Blender. But I have to do that in a way that's not going to damage the Metahuman structure. My goal is to make adjustments in Blender and then seamlessly bring them back into Unreal Engine. So I made a new level sequencer, add our Metahuman blueprint to it, and export it. Need to make sure that Morph Targets are checked. We need those a lot. But before I proceed to Blender, I had to put the exported FBX file through this FBX converter to make Morph Targets compatible with Blender. So what is Morph Targets? Morph Targets is what we call blend shape or shape keys in Blender. It's like different states of the mesh. In Metahumans, hundreds of these shape keys blend together to create facial animations. These shape keys or Morph Targets are also how we're going to customize the Wolverine mesh. When I import the exported Wolverine blueprint to Blender, I got face, body, and feet, each with its own armature. I don't need the feet, so I'll delete it and keep the body and face with their armatures. For both of these meshes, I make a new shape key and make all the necessary tweaks to the mesh. Here, since it is two different meshes, I had to make sure these connecting points remained aligned with all the changes. Then in the sculpting mode, I made the body more muscular and changed the proportions of the face. I was going for a more skin-tight suit, so I duplicate the body mesh and delete certain parts of it, and tweak the rest to roughly make that suit shape. Also, I found a free Wolverine model online and borrowed some parts like boots and mask. I created some gloves and a belt from the body mesh and added openings for claws. For the claws, I used two curves to make the claw shape. One to make the claw basic shape and the other to drive its profile. This way I can make necessary tweaks until the moment I want to convert these to meshes. I initially made it very curvy from the start to end, but later I changed it to go straight at the beginning and curved it in at the end. Next, I UV unwrapped all the new suit meshes to prepare for texturing. I made sure not to touch the face and body mesh UVs. We want to keep it exactly as it came from Unreal. Now I want all these new meshes to respond to the Metahuman body and face rigs. I have to make the relation between bones and the mesh through vertex groups. Since I already kept a copy of the original face and body mesh, I can transfer the vertex groups data from them to the new mesh. There are plenty of ways one can do this. I can transfer the vertex weight through weight paint mode in Blender. Or I can use data transfer modifier. Another free option is using mesh data transfer add-on, which is very important for the next step. which is transferring the shape keys. When the face is blending between the shape keys, I want the mask to follow it. So I use the Mesh Data Transfer add-on to transfer shape keys based on the nearest vertex of the mask and face meshes. Since the face and mask have two different mesh topologies, it won't be perfect, but this add-on usually does a decent job. Then I delete any unnecessary face and body vertices hidden behind the suit. Before moving on to the next stages, it is time to test all these out in Unreal. In Unreal, I imported them and selected the already existing Metahuman skeleton in Unreal that matches the one I exported. Make sure to import Morph Targets. I duplicated the original Wolverine blueprint as a backup and replaced the meshes inside with the imported ones. Unfortunately, this method didn't really work for the face and the body. So I duplicated the original face and body meshes in Unreal and replaced their source with our exported face and body meshes. Re-import it. Reassign the materials, and in the morph targets I can see the new morph I added and they are working nicely. Then I replaced the blueprint face and body meshes with these. Also, I add a few blueprint nodes to set those new morph targets to their full value at all times. These newly added meshes to the blueprint messed up the grooming assets like hair, beard, and etc. To fix them, I find those assets in contents, create a new binding asset for each of them, and select our new face skeleton mesh as the binding mesh. Then assign them in the blueprint. But I made my own groom assets later, so this step didn't matter after all. The big question is, how is the mask doing with its morph targets that we transferred from the face mesh? Unreal has a default animation that I can use to check it. So when I switch the preview mesh to our mask face, you can see it is alright. It has a few issues when eyes are blinking, but I think it is alright. We can get away with it. Also, I tested the blueprint with separate body and facial animations and both are working fine. With the basics tested, I moved to adding details. So back in Blender, I made duplicates of all the assets I made and subdivide them. This adds more vertices to the mesh, allowing me to add more details to them with more sculpting. Here I only add tiny details that I can extract through textures and apply to the original customized mesh. So after all the details, I exported the new meshes as FBX file. For the next texturing phase, I use Substance Painter. You can do texture painting in Blender with the help of some free add-ons, but I am much more comfortable in Substance and it is a far more powerful tool. So I make a new project with the original low poly mesh. It's the same as the one I exported to Unreal, but this one doesn't have any skeletons and I join all the meshes into one. To start texturing, I use original Metahuman textures as a base for skin materials. I found them in Unreal and exported them out. Imported them to Substance and added it to the color and normal channels of the face and body materials. Then to add the additional details I sculpted, I do a baking process. In there I selected my exported high poly mesh and hit bake. Substance will bake some texture map comparing our high poly and low poly meshes, which Substance uses for its materials. Once the baking is done, I have all those high details in our low poly mesh. Now it is time for painting. Substance has pre-made materials and smart materials that I can drag and drop and start tweaking. With its Photoshop type layer-based workflow, I can add details on top of each other and mask them out however I want. It is pretty much non-destructive, which means if I don't like the certain changes I made, I can come back to it and change it to a completely different one. The biggest challenge for me was finding the right shade of color for the suit. I know it's yellow and blue, but there are thousands of yellows and blues, and they all look different in different lightings. And if you have seen my previous Blender projects, I often go for dark aesthetics, which often tends me towards dark desaturated colors. So during the project, I changed the base yellow and blue color a few times. Once the initial painting is done, I add some blood, dust, scratches all over the suit and the body. After that, I exported the textures to Unreal, color maps at 4K resolution and the normal maps at 8K. Imported them to Unreal and added them to our materials. For claws, I exported them from Blender as separate objects. In Unreal, I add sockets to the body skeleton. I use one of the claws as a preview mesh to place those sockets exactly where I want with the right orientation. Then in the blueprint, I add claws to the body and parented each claw to its respective socket. This way, claws will move with the rest of the animations, and if I want, I can animate the claw coming out and going in by animating the socket's local position in the sequencer. Also, I changed the claw material a bit to create a parameter that can be used to hide the area of the claw that going in. It's time to customize the hair and all the groom assets. I have to say, digital grooming is something I rarely do, so I'm not really good at it. Or I rarely do it because I suck at it. Anyway, I use the new geometry nodes based hair system in Blender to make the new groom assets: hair, mustache and beard for both non-mask and mask versions. And also I created body hair for the arms as well. Once that was done, I applied the curve modifiers and converted them into particle hair, which then I can export as an Alembic file to Unreal. Unreal will automatically recognize the Alembic file as a groom asset and import them accordingly. Then I tweak the groom asset settings and create a new binding asset for each of the groom assets and add them to the Wolverine Metahuman. I did a few different versions of the groom assets during the project, and here is what I ended up with. It is not great, but I did a better job than I expected I would. So finally, it was time to test the final Wolverine Metahuman with the Livelink app. Livelink is an iOS app that allows you to record facial animation real time for our Metahuman characters. I connect the Unreal and Livelink app and enable the AR kit for face, and it is working decently in real time. After that, I downloaded this male action pose from 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒕 and used a free 𝒕𝒐𝒏𝒕 converter to convert the animation file to an Unreal supported one. Then I imported it to Unreal and retarget the animation to the Metahuman skeleton. In a new level, I make a new level sequencer, add Wolverine blueprint and assign the retargeted animation to the body skeleton. Make a necessary adjustment to the pose through the control rig. For the facial pose, I use the take recorder window to record the Livelink facial movement and add it to the face skeleton. I reopened the level and the sequencer to fix the head separating issue. After that, I add some lights to the scene. Add a camera, enable the volumetric lights and shadows. Use a Niagara particle system to add some dust element to the environment. Did a bit of post-processing, and here is the final results.
Who's next? Oh my God.
Who the fuck are you?
As for my first animation project in Unreal, I think I did okay. It was a huge trial and error process. I did end up trying different methods and techniques for making Deadpool, Hulk and other characters. Some of those techniques did not end up using but can be very handy down the line. So if you are interested in a part 2 of the video, comment down below. As usual, project files are available for patrons, and here is one of my Unreal Engine Niagara system tutorials, and you can see some of my other Blender projects from here. Thanks for watching.